Welcome to the 3 Pillars of Ruby Payne's Framework content. Payne's training centers on 3 main ideas: understanding the rules of poverty, the role of the teacher in navigating these rules, and the mindsets of different socioeconomic classes. Over the last 3 decades, as EdStar Analytics has evaluated grant-funded programs, this has been a big part of a lot of the grant-funded programs where the staff that would be participating in a program to serve low-income kids would participate in this Ruby Payne training. So we've seen it like over the last 3 decades, and it seemed to play quite a role in some of the conflict as educators transitioned into the era of using data, yet they were still participating in the Ruby Payne training. Some of what we've seen in practice can be explained or at least better understood with some of the research looking at the framework for understanding poverty. And one such research paper is the Miseducating Teachers About the Poor, a critical analysis of Ruby Payne's claims about poverty. And in this paper, they point out that the training seems to promote deficit thinking, and it promotes stereotypes about the poor without anything to back it up. There's no research to back it up. And we've also seen that when educators have the poverty training and they internalize what they've learned in that training, then when they go to use data and make a data-driven plan for raising achievement, they have cognitive dissonance. And I'll walk through an example of something that we've seen in our work. The research points out that the participants of the poverty training are taught what they refer to as truth statements, and they went through the training and they identified the different truth statements and what are presented as if they're truth, although there's no research to back them. And they are things such as focus on present versus planning for the future is one of the differences between low-income people and middle-income people. She also points out or has truth statements to convey that they have distinct value systems. For example, middle-class individuals emphasize self-sufficiency, planning for the future, and achieving their work and educational goals, whereas low-income people are focused on surviving, and that they value interpersonal relationships as opposed to having relationships for the purpose of social networking. Payne contends that the differences in values, behaviors, and attitudes between different socioeconomic classes can create barriers to academic success. She suggests that these disparities, particularly as they pertain to students from low-income backgrounds, can impact their ability to fully engage in and benefit from the educational process. According to the research, the framework portrays poverty as a personal failure to be fixed, which reinforces negative stereotypes. So what have we seen in practice? EdStar Analytics was hired to help a school improvement team to make a school improvement plan to close the achievement gap between the low-income students and the other students. And they went through the framework for understanding poverty training before they hired us to come in. They had already made their plan, and they had identified what data they were going to use with their plan. And as it turned out, what they planned, they had internalized that they believed from their training that the low-income students couldn't raise their achievement until they were changed in these ways that made them different from middle-income students. So what their school improvement plan entailed, every staff member secretly chose a student who they believed to be low income. They were no longer allowed to use the free lunch list for academic interventions, so they had to have other ways to identify who they thought was poor, secretly mentor the child and try to change them in one of the ways that Ruby Payne says middle-income students and low-income students differ. And then they took surveys, and they had the surveys, but they didn't know what to do with the data. So we pulled the data on the students who they were mentoring, and what we found was that the majority of those students were already academically successful. And although the school was about 20% minority, about 75% of the students being mentored were minority students. A significant shift in thinking was required. The staff needed to unlearn many of the beliefs about student success and poverty. We asked them how they selected the students, once they saw the data, and they said they did not know how to tell who was low income now that they couldn't see the lunch list. So they looked at what bus the students rode, and if they rode a bus with lots of minorities on it, they assumed that they must probably be low income. They didn't check the data. But this school's journey provides a valuable lesson in the importance of challenging our assumptions and biases and the role of data in driving change. This experience underscores the need for a deeper understanding of the complexities of poverty beyond this training of this poverty framework.